understand. She's in the person of Mavis Bosman, who is currently the head of capital markets at Guaranteed Trust Bank. You see, they are clapping. She's a powerhouse. She's responsible for building the right portfolio mixed and managing the bank's investment portfolio in line with sustainable objectives to obtain optimal results. She oversees the management and financial performance of the trading team. She has a strong interest in green finance and has successfully initiated and implemented sustainable investment policies in her institution. I don't want to go further. In my language, you will say major and half. Not about Bosodo. And now when she comes, you know that she's a full powerhouse. Mavis, please walk up stage. Give it up for her.
Thank you very much, Wilhelmina, for that introduction. I'm Mavis. Today, this section involves another powerhouse, or a senior powerhouse, in the person of, no, I won't mention the name. Last year, after 30 years of the Ghana Stock Exchange existence, they realized that it was time for us to move from a frontier market to an emerging market, and we needed not just an ordinary human being, but someone who has been on the market for quite some time and has the needed expertise and build the credibility to push that agenda. For being on the market for 20 years, the capital markets for 20 years, having started being the founder of Baobab Finance House, please, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome the Deputy Managing Director of the Ghana Stock Exchange, Ms. Abena Amoah. Oh, you can clap loudly. She likes fans. If you don't give her fans, she won't come. Yeah. Ms. Abena Amoah, you are welcome with us this afternoon. Thank you. You can have a seat. Let me sit here so that I can quiz you better. All right. We are dissecting the topic or having a conversation about upholding balance and then building a robust pipeline for future female leaders in the financial market space. And there is none to have this conversation with than the highly esteemed Ms. Abena Amoah. You are welcome once again, madam.
Good afternoon, Mavis, boss lady, bossman. I've just inserted a middle name to her. I see she's Opoku Bossman.
Yes.
But since she's a lady, she is my boss lady. So good afternoon, boss lady, and good afternoon to all of you beautiful sisters. And Gifty, where is Gifty? There she is. Everyone give Gifty a big round of applause. Gifty is the definition of tenacity. Of I don't take no for an answer. So thank you, Gifty, and the honor you and CGIA have done to me this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. You are welcome once again, madam. So we will just dive straight into our topic for this afternoon. Upholding balance, building a robust pipeline of future female leaders. And we all know the balance we are talking about because we've been at it since morning. Before we start, can you please give us a brief description Your journey through the male-dominated finance world. I tried, but I couldn't do enough justice. So if you could please just give us a brief description of who you are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I want to see how many Abenas are in this room. Please stand up, Abenas. Where are all the Abenas? And the Kwabnes as well. There you are. I predict for all of you more panel discussions in your future.
Amen.
The last panel had an Abena. The one to that had an Abena. And here I am again, another Abena. We will talk on panels. My journey in finance was accidental. Absolutely accidental. I grew up watching TV, and I think I fell in love with the legal profession because I watched some of these court drama things, and I was like, oh, it looks so glamorous. I want to be a lawyer.
Okay.
I went to school. I went to St. Rose's Secondary School, the best school. Yeah, there's another one over there. It was a very interesting education at St. Rose's. We're an all-girls school, 400 of us from Form 1 to Upper 6, run by German nuns, and we were raised to think that we could do anything we wanted to do.
Okay.
There was no difference in any way. Nothing your sex determined that you couldn't do. If you had the interest, if you wanted to pursue that, if you're willing to study that, you're open to do that.
Okay.
We did our A-levels, the results came out. I got some of the best results ever. And in those days, the best students automatically in the arts went to the business school. I wanted to go to the law school. My parents called me, my uncles called me. My cousin is sitting here, her dad and my dad together tag-teamed me. Even though he was a lawyer, they said, you're going to the business school.
Okay.
And I was like, but I want to be a lawyer. No way. So I ended up in the business school. I was muddling through. But the first time ever, I attended that business school, School of Admin. And for the first time ever in my life, there was an accounting lecturer that came into the class. And his first words were, there are 120 of you here. All the girls, pair up with the guys. You're going to suffer in this subject. Those were his words.
Interesting.
And I just looked at this man, and I could not understand why my sex determined that I was going to struggle in accounting. There were 5 of the 20 girls, 5 of us were from St. Rose's.
Okay.
The guys in the school, of course, also had somehow gotten a hold of the girls' graduation scores from the A-levels, and determined that they would form their own study groups and invite selectively those that they thought were super brainy.
Yeah.
So I just talked to my girlfriends and said, let's form our own study group. So we were challenged that we weren't good enough only because of our sex by someone who knew nothing about us.
Yeah.
We were challenged by our own classmates who knew nothing about us other than our scores from A-level, and were told essentially we weren't good enough. So we grouped together and we did our own thing. The first business maths exams that came up, the first best performers, the first, I think, 7 top grades were all female. The accounting tests that came out, the first top 7 were all female. And then, of course, to cut a long story short, when I graduated university, I was ranked the best performing student in my year. Many of us go on our knees every day and we pray to God to take away challenges from our lives. It's the wrong attitude. We should welcome challenges. Life is full of challenges. We should pray for the grace to deal with challenges. I was challenged. I took that challenge and became a serious student. I took that challenge and decided to go to the library and put in a bit more effort. I took that challenge to seek other people's help, seek help from other women, seek help from other students, and try and understand the subject. It wasn't an easy subject, of course, but it didn't mean that I couldn't do it only because of my sex. I took that challenge and put in a little bit more. And from putting in a little bit more, all those people that challenged me helped me to do better. I did not pray it away. I found a way to grow from that. So let's accept challenges. Challenges are there to provide us with growth opportunities. We are Christians, we are religious people, we can't pray them away. It is grace to come up with tools to solve them and grow from that. So that is how I ended up in the business school and graduated top of it. When I left school, I was very confused about what to do next.
Okay.
When we were leaving school, I'd realized that I hadn't seen Ghana. So together with 3 girlfriends, we planned to travel to the 3 northern regions. Spent 3 weeks, no one in any of them. Just go and visit the 3 northern regions. I don't know what happened, but they chickened out of it. And I was left alone. And I told my parents that I wanted to go and see Upper East, Upper West, and Northern region. And they thought I was crazy. I went to OSA Transport, bought tickets, and started my journey up north, going to secondary schools that were on vacation then, asking to sleep in the dormitories, and just touring the 3 northern regions. I was on the road for 3 weeks, knowing no one, but having the best time of my life, meeting real Ghanaians, experiencing Ghanaian hospitality at the most, I have no words for it. People who had nothing. Okay. You know, outside of Accra back then, they'll tell you that, oh, a certain place is just, you know, it's just around the corner. Yeah. And for me, just around the corner was a 5-minute walk. Okay. And just around the corner actually was a 7-kilometer walk on a path that I had no idea. I stopped at Larabanga and I was going to Mole National Park. And they told me, oh, it's just there. And I was walking and the sun was hot and I was seeing animal prints. And I'm like, a lion is going to eat me. And I'm seeing mirages, and it just goes on and on. And these people that had nothing, they would say, come and sleep with us in our hut, and I'll take up these offers. So I came down to Accra. I didn't have a job. A girlfriend called me and said, I've just met this man. He has come from America. He started a new business, a brokerage firm. And I think you'd love working with this person. So come and talk to him. And that person he's now called Togbe Afede. I went there on a Tuesday. The meeting was at 3 p.m. Ended up talking till 6 p.m. And the very next day at 7 p.m. I started work at SAS. Wow. So it just happened to me, completely accidental, and started work at a startup, essentially what was a startup business. Yeah. When I just graduated top of my class, my parents, as usual, had the ideas of me going to the KPMGs, the Unilevers, the banks of the world. And then I showed up at home and I said, I'm going to a company called SAS. And they're like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, our office is on the Ring Road next to Bar Stop, next to that disco. How many staff work there? I'm like, oh, it's the founder and the receptionist and the trader, and I'll be the 4th person. What? And I love what they are trying to do. You're crazy. Again, my uncle was called to speak sense to me, and thankfully I'm stubborn, so I didn't listen this time. So that has been my journey. It's completely accidental, but it's been the best journey of my life. For me, the second lesson is nothing is too small for you. Nothing is too small for you. Many of us, when we dream of our dream job, it must come with a car, and not just any car. You know, the key that you can twirl, and everyone is looking at you and being jealous of you. It must come with a corner office. It must be glamorous. Your office must be in a glass building. You know, for many of us, that's our aspiration, and it's great. But for me, the lesson is in, so you have all of that. What are you doing with it? The substance of what it is that you want to do. What is it that I heard that made me say, this is what I want to do? The story I heard was very simple. That Ghanaians are unable to save, to invest, and to have financial security. And we want to change this. That was the story I heard.
Okay.
I want to change and bring financial security to Ghanaians. And for me, it was like a calling. Because I'd seen, I was raised below average income family. I'd seen the effects around where I was raised of people that couldn't afford to eat, that couldn't afford to send their children to school. My school at St. Rose's, they did everything to level everyone. You couldn't tell the difference between a rich person and a poor person. And yet, there were still a few people that you knew instinctively that despite the size of everyone having, the fact that everyone had the same size locker, and which was, maybe you see the box A4 paper comes in.
Yeah.
Everyone in the school had just that locker to keep food in. You could put in 1 olunka of gari, 1 bottle of shito, 12 tins of milk, 12 tins of sardine, and it was full. You didn't keep food anywhere else. And yet, there were people that would struggle to have 1 tin of sardine in that locker box. So that calling, something to eradicate poverty, to create financial security for every Ghanaian, I was like, sign me up. Wow. That is a passion. So the trimmings didn't matter. And that was what my calling was, and that is why I sit here today.
Interesting. You found a purpose out of a challenge, and you are still running with it. At the start of your conversation, you spoke about the words your lecturer spoke. The ladies should pair up with the men because they were going to struggle. And even now, it is still prevalent in our part of the industry where the males are dominating. We talk about balance all the time, but is there really balance? We talk about upholding balance. Have we put the right structures in place in the Ghanaian financial space to create this balance that we so crave as women, to create that balance that we so talking about all the time? Are the right structures in place?
I think we've made some gains, for sure. When I entered business school, there were, as I said, 100 males, 120 females. The last admissions criteria from University of Ghana, I think for the 2020-2021 academic year, 49.5% of the 15,000 students admitted were female, and the rest were male. So, and I think the statistic cuts across the other tertiary institutions, at least for the first degree side. There may be differences, of course, in definitely STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, etc. There will be definitely differences there, but overall, we are seeing that some of the investments we've made about getting girl children into school is beginning to bear fruit at the tertiary level. So we are getting parity there. So that's one step. I've also had the privilege of serving on a few boards, such as Access Bank board. And at the Access Bank team, what I realized was that at the entry level, up to about 10 years of a professional's life in that bank, actually the women slightly outnumber the men. So up to just below middle management, the women slightly outnumber the men. In fact, at the entry level, the women are about 60%. Okay. As it goes to mid-level, it's going to about 52% women, and then after that. Once you get above mid-level management, there's a significant drop. And then, of course, by the time you get to the boardroom, you get to the C-suite, CEO, chief finance officer, etc. Significant minority, and then boardroom even more. So I think the bottom is getting better. Mm-hmm. There are clear obstacles why the middle is falling behind, and it's from that middle that carries on. So women's advancement has become a pyramid. Okay. We've grown the bottom to be bigger. We're yet to tackle more of the issues that, instead of having a very steep pyramid, we are aiming to have a cylindrical shape where men and women equally have the opportunity, have the rights, have the recognition to grow and work together in partnership as collaborators to advance these organizations, because the case for diversity is not even being made anymore. It's completely accepted. Study after study after study proves that diversified companies, diversified tables, always make much, much better decisions than the other angles. So I think some of the work needs to be done, and it's around that following my appointment at the Ghana Stock Exchange, I made sure we partnered with the Boardroom Africa to begin to study this dynamic. So last year, for the first time, the Ghana Stock Exchange partnered with the Boardroom Africa and studied this dynamic on the listed companies on the GSC. Came out with a great report. We just launched our 2021 report, which indicates a slight improvement over 2020. It's small, but we celebrate every small step. And the focus for us for next year is coming up with programs that deliberately target that upper middle level roles up to the board level roles, and see how we can work with the companies themselves to improve the numbers. Ghana, I must say, I'm proud in Africa. We're one of the shinier examples, even compared to the global stage. Yes. About 30% of our listed companies have already achieved the 30% women in the boardroom. When I was on the Access Bank board, I was the only woman at a point. By the time I left that board, there were 3 women on the board. So for me, it's getting through that door. Okay. And once you get through that door, what you can do to change and influence things can then follow on.
All right, thank you. I'm sure most of us here are at certain points in our careers, and we've hit a snag Like you rightly said, at the base of the pyramid, there are a lot of women. When you come to the middle management, it begins to thin out. And when you get to the top level management, it's mostly non-existent. And even those on boards are mostly on boards as corporate secretaries. Is it that the only thing women can do is to be of help to the man? We know that God said the woman is to help the man, but is it supposed to be very glaring in all situations and in all circumstances? And what can we, who have in some way hit a snag in our middle level career or come to some sort of a standstill due to other biological functions we have as women, hit a snag in our career, stuck in middle management or stuck just at the bottom of the pyramid and unable to advance to the top?
There are few strategies, and I think a little bit about what you said about the account of the woman as a helper. It sounds like that accounting professor of mine wrote that story. But there are a few strategies that I would say work best. One is our networks. I was just telling you, Doris came to introduce herself and said how proud you were when my announcement came out last year that I'd been appointed to the Ghana Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
But I almost did not get that job. It may come as a surprise to many of you here. People think Abena Amoah has proven herself in the industry. She's intelligent. She's this. So I'm a shoe-in.
Yeah.
I almost did not get that job. In fact, I did not get that job. There was a recommendation made that I was the wrong candidate for that job. And it was determined, and it was fine. And it was done.
Wow. What changed?
Let that sink in. You all sit out there and you think I'm special, I'm wonderful, I'm a finance guru. A group determined I wasn't good enough to be in that position. Because they did not just know me from afar. They had experienced my work over a very long period. They had experienced how I'd networked with them. They had experienced how I'd suggested solutions to them. They had experienced how, if there was tiring work to be done, or dirty work to be done, or the work no one wanted to do, I would raise my hand up. I would scream and shout. I will say, I want to do it. And so they spoke up and said, no, that's not the Abena Amoah we know.
Okay.
That's not the Abena Amoah we know. So invest in your network. Invest in your school, old student associations. There's so much thankless work we do in those places. So much thankless work. No one wants to do it. Give your time. In your church networks. Build that network. Let there be, it's not enough to have a mentor. It's important to have a sponsor. Someone who, when you are not at the table, can speak up for you. But when they are speaking up for you, it means that at that level, they will put their head on the table for you. They are ready to have their head chopped off for you. And once you have people like that, you know the pressure on you is at another level. You've got to deliver.
Yeah.
And so, for me, that network is everything. And that network comes through other ways. How many of us share our professional opinions in write-ups? How many of us contribute to newspapers, radio programs? We're all finance and investment professionals here. Susie sits here. I take delight in reading the papers and seeing who is writing, who is educating. our masters about finance and investment. And then I take a picture and I say, Susie, please tell Kojo that this story he wrote is so great. I take a picture. Sometimes I call her staff and say, well done for writing about this matter. And she'll call me and say, you didn't even call me. I said, no, I know you've done, but your staff I want to celebrate.
Yeah.
So we are all here. How many of us have blogs? So that's the first thing. When the radio stations call and they say they can't find women to educate and talk about economics and investments and finance, are we standing up?
Yes.
We need more. That is another way of getting noticed. We need more and more and more and more. Because currently, there aren't enough of us doing it. So for me, getting noticed, and it's not even getting noticed. If you have, remember what I said my calling was? My calling was to make sure that everybody had a secure financial future. That's my calling. It's as simple as that. My gardener at home must have an investment scheme. His salary, I will scream and shout, you must save X percentage of your money, and this is the investment fund you should put it in. And as every IPO is going on or a treasury bill is, you're buying it. That is the micro level. You can't get in a lift with me without me asking you, have you bought some shares this week? That is my calling. So because I have that personal calling, my aim is to make sure everyone knows about it. I want to educate everyone. So it's not a job for me. That is why I did the financial education. In spite of, I come and sit here on these panels, and many of you don't know that I'm an introvert. My idea of a perfect day is at home with the blinds all closed, and I'm in bed reading, doing whatever. No one should talk to me. But I gather my thoughts, I come and sit here, all of these eyes, God, why are they all looking at me? But I have to talk, because my calling means that I must speak with people, and I must educate people, and I must convince people that do investments, have an investment program. This is the way to enhance your financial security. So that's why I do what I do. These little things, once you found your calling, you'll be like Paul. You know, Saul, for those of us Christians, Peter was Jesus' chosen man, right? Yeah. Jesus' chosen man was Peter. He was to lead the church. But where would Christianity be without Saul? Saul, who was busy killing early Christians. When he met his match on the way to Damascus, half of the Bible is written by Paul. His letters, the New Testament, is him. You could not keep Paul quiet about his love for Christ. The Christian church is what it is because of Paul's utter commitment to what he wanted to do. So find that if we are here and we are women in finance and we are women in investment, and we are fortunate to live in a country that has a glaring problem. Businesses need money. Businesses need capital. Every single survey, number one challenge is access to capital. Many of our people are poor, have little financial literacy. Two glaring problems that we don't need studies to even tell us about. How are we taking this up as a religion and using every tool we have to solve these two problems? That is the challenge for us, and that requires us speaking up. Those of us that are shy like me, put it aside, speak up endlessly, write about it, say, I will do it. It's not for us, it's for the people that we serve.
Thank you. Speaking up, lifting up our hands and saying, I'll do it, and doing all the dirty work. You spoke about how 5 men spoke for you because they knew your work and they knew your worth. There is some sense of a false balance because most companies want to have a female representative on their board just for the sake of it. This balance we are talking about, do we need to have a false balance or a merit-based ensure that the balance that we are fighting for, we actually merit it?
I think the issue of tokenism is real. The token woman at the table. And it's very simple, having had the opportunity to sit at that table with a lot of men in a lot of diversified companies, is that when it comes to what qualifies as a woman fit to sit at the table, the standard is here. When it comes to qualifying what qualifies a man to sit at the same table, the standard is lower than what a woman needs to go through. So they are really, in a lot of my experience, I've been looking at really like outstanding human beings with the gender of women when it comes to that final role, but it's not a standard I've found applicable to men. I'm not saying we should lower the standard for anyone.
Okay.
Many times too, there are many names that don't come readily to people's minds. There are many names that don't come to people's minds readily. Why do we think that is? Either you don't have a sponsor, or you haven't made yourself that unmissable voice. What do we remember most? Someone who's continuously in front of us, or someone who comes occasionally to check in. So the visibility thing is a big issue. The second thing is that what I've done is have a Rolodex of women that I know are more than good enough.
Okay.
So everywhere I go, oh, you don't know anyone? Here is my list.
Okay.
And then people are like, but we want you. I'm like, nope.
Have a list.
I'm not available to do any more of your seats, but please, this woman I'm recommending to you. I said, then it's not me you want on your board. Because if it's me you want on your board, you would value my recommendation.
Yeah.
If you are unable to value my recommendation that this woman is good enough to sit on your board, then when I come and sit on your board, you are trying to do tokenism.
Yeah.
Or you are just trying to get a name on your board. And a few companies that have listened to me have said they've had the best directors ever. So first, all of us, make a list. Make a list of your female friends. The minimum qualification is that they have a profession, they have ideas, they are willing to learn, they are willing to teach others, and they have a skill set that company is looking for. That skill set includes people who understand finance, people who understand HR, people who are in the IT sector, people who are in the legal profession, people who are architects, people who are medical doctors, because boardrooms are not made of people. A bank's board is not made of other bankers. The people who are managing the bank are the experts in the bank. The boardroom is made up of people with different skill sets and expertise to help shape strategy and to help the experts who are managing the company to see, have you thought of this other matter? Have you looked at this matter in another way? So a bank's board or a hospital's board is not necessarily made up of only doctors and nurses. In fact, they should be in the minority. But someone who can look at the accounts and say, work with the external auditors and say, we have covered ourselves. Someone in the legal profession, someone in HR, someone in anything, IT. All boards today are looking at how we can use technology to advance our courses. So, generalists, that's all. And that comes from within our networks. And every single one of these women are good enough. So when they tell you they can't find them, hand over your list. And every day I refresh my list. And that is why some of the things the Boardroom Africa is doing, compiling a list and preparing women all across Africa and showcasing them that these people are more than board ready, so that the company boards can no longer tell us, I don't know where to go. Because there are people that are more than adequate in terms of ideas to support these companies in their growth. So tokenism is far from the way to do it. But making the bar so high that very few people can get there is also wrong. But importantly, letting all these companies know where they can go to scan a list of people they can invite to their boards is, I think, the solution to do. So even the Women in Finance Network, CGIA, take your list of all these people, every single one of them here. Take your list, showcase them, board-ready person of the week, what the person's strengths are, what they can add to a company, and experience of sitting on other boards. It's a meeting. It's a meeting to read papers and digest the information and make recommendations. Any person generally who has been schooled in logical reasoning, you don't even need a university degree for that. Any person schooled or educated in how to take logical decisions is perfectly fine. It's perfect, so long as you have something you are bringing to the table. And we've spoken a lot about how to sharpen what it is that we bring to the table. But my lesson here today is that after being members of CGIA, after holding the positions we hold in our offices, all of us are good enough today to serve on many, many of the boards that I know about.
Thank you. Thank you. After finding ourselves in those spaces, after doing what others wouldn't do so that we'll rise on the pyramid, finding people who speak on our behalf, who speak in rooms where we are not in, how do we maintain our relevance? You have been on the capital markets for 20 years, and you have maintained your relevance throughout these years. As we wrap up, how do we maintain our relevance?
Thank you. Our relevance is multifaceted. I think women need to, or humans, we need to re-engineer ourselves. I had my son 11 years ago. I took a break from active capital market duties. I went off and did all sorts of interesting things. There was a time I found myself in a room with 15 men who were all engineers, master planning a 400-acre industrial site. And there I was coordinating 15 men, civil engineers, structural engineers, talking about soil samples, load bearing, something, something, something. And you know, that process I went through, I took that break from advising people on how to run their businesses to go and try my own hands at how to run a business. It humbled me. Let me tell you, it flattened me on the floor like this, straight. But again, it was a challenge I had to go through, because it's so nice when we are like Susie and say, oh, you know, I've looked at the books, and if you do it this way, you'd have resolved your problems, and we are sitting there and we send you a bill and you have to pay us our advisor's fee. But when you're on the other side, and you have to think payroll, you have to think permits, you have to think dealing with people who have to approve things for you, you have to think of finding customers, you have to think of safety, you have to think of the community, this project you're doing, how it impacts people's lives. How do you, it's a different mindset. And then you have to deal with the banks, and they are laughing at you like, you want how much money? So that reinvention of ourselves, that going to the other side to experience life on the other side is so critical. Our capacity as human beings, I found, is very, very wide and deep. It's what you fill yourself with. We haven't lost our childhood magic of being sponges, capable of soaking as much and as many different things as possible. So to stay relevant for me, expose yourself to many things. Read. Ask questions. There isn't, you can imagine me with these engineers. Every question I asked was stupid. I was known as, I gladly gave myself that title. But I had to learn. So if you take yourself too seriously and you nod along to the conversation, they'll take you for a ride. But in asking the stupid questions, I enriched and made them think of other solutions that enriched what we were trying to do. So please, it's scary, but it's okay to also raise your hand and say, I don't know. I need help. Where can I find it? And learn. Because that has been what has, I believe, given me a more rounded perspective about life and about business, but also reinforced my passion for what I want to do. Because sitting on the other side and seeing how difficult it was for entrepreneurs to access capital, even now drove my passion to do what I want to do to the next level. So savers to investments, so that we have these funds gathered together to give this capital to, business people who can create jobs, who can give us the financial security, who can give us the social security that we are looking for, is beyond a passion now. So broaden your horizons. I can't say that enough. Broaden your horizons. There are many, many scary things in our minds. But when you break it down to the smallest step and you take that first step, then you're on the path to demystifying that big, hairy monster that you don't want to tackle. The ability is in us. Many of us think we are not good enough. I certainly thought I wasn't good enough several times. I certainly thought that. But if not me, then who? If not you, who's that other person who's better than you? And what information do you have that made you think that they are better than you? We're all going to the interview. You don't know that person. We've all showed up in the room. If not you, then who? So take that, whatever it is, and make that first jump. Stick your head a bit above water. The worst thing that will happen to you is a no. I haven't heard no kill anyone. It's the worst thing. And sometimes it could be a yes. It's a 50-50 chance. I choose to take the 50% chance that would lead to a yes. So let's all gather the courage. Call a girlfriend. Call a man friend. Call on your God. Say, give me that courage to go for that yes. And if for nothing at all, I tried. I came to the room. They didn't offer me a seat at the table. I came to the room with my own table. And I made my table so attractive that the other people left their table and came to sit at my table. And finally, when they sat at my table, I made sure that the reasons they did not invite me to their table were never at my table. And at my table, it was inclusive, it was celebrating everyone, it was hearing everyone's voice. What you don't want done to you, make sure you are not doing to someone else. Thank you.
Interesting. If they won't invite you to the table, take your own table to the room and invite them. Thank you so much, Ms. Amoah. It has been a very interesting section. But rather unfortunately, we are hearing a no more time, and we have to leave. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.